I'm not going to say that this is a new series, but what I want to do is allow you to be a fly on the wall. Let's pretend that my brain is a room, and you're going to come on into that room, and you're just going to be a fly, attach yourself to the wall, and see the manner in which my creativity works and flows. And maybe in watching this video, you might be able to find a few things that you can lean into and latch onto that might help you in your creative efforts, either in the D&D space or outside of that. But what I'm going to do real quick is I want to show you and lean into how my 5 bullet point system can really get you up and running and really get you going and be the catalyst and the springboard for you to create some amazing content in D&D. I'm going to pull something off the shelf, okay? So we're going to look at Out of the Abyss, okay? I'm not going to use Out of the Abyss. I'm not going to run a module, or I'm not going to run this or whatever. I'm just going to use this as inspiration. I want to show you the way this 5 bullet point system can really work efficiently. I'm going to flip to any random page. Okay, this has a page on the Harpers and Forging an Alliance, the Order of the Gauntlet, the Emerald Enclave. I'm going to read something from page 126 in the book Out of the Abyss. I didn't think about this ahead of time. Let's just find a paragraph that looks relatively... There it is right there. Enemies among us. This is talking about Gauntlgrim, but we're not attaching it to Out of the Abyss. We're just using some words as inspiration. Okay? There's a bullet point here that says, a dwarf assassin belonging to a demon-worshipping cult steals into Gauntlgrim to kill one or more of the faction representatives. Hoping to cast suspicion onto the adventurers, the assassin frames them as demonic agents. Okay, so what we're going to do, so we don't lose track of what's happening there, I'm going to create some bullet points. These bullet points are not the same as the 5 bullet point system. Okay, we'll elaborate on the things I'm going to write right now in just a little bit, but I want to just lay down the gist of what that little paragraph was. So we have a demon worshipping dwarven assassin. Okay, we'll make these as bullet points, as I said. What else? A dwarf assassin belonging to a demon worshipping cult steals into Gauntlgrim to kill one or more of the... He kills one or more of the faction representatives of the place. We're not attaching it to Gauntlgrim, so we'll leave that ambiguous. Hoping to cast suspicion onto the adventurers, the assassin frames them as demonic agents. The PCs are framed for the assassination, and the dwarven bad guy is trying to claim that they are demonic agents. Basically, he's trying to push all responsibility for the deed and his evil demon worshipping off onto the PCs to draw attention away from him. Okay, so that's where we are. Again, Out of the Abyss, random paragraph. All right, I want to show you the 5 bullet point system and the way that we can start creating some amazing content. So we're not attaching this to any particular world. You can put this in your own world, in Eberron, Wildemount, Forgotten Realms, whatever you want. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to use the 5 bullet point system. Okay, we're going to take those three things above, and we're going to figure out 5 bullet points that will form the anchors upon which my creativity will flow, which will then turn into some content that I can bring to my table to get me through some sessions of gameplay. All right, so we have a demon-worshipping dwarven assassin. I did say he kills one or more. I don't think it indicated whether it was a he or she, but this dwarf kills one or more of the faction representatives of the place. Okay, it mentioned Gauntlgrim there, but we need to leave that kind of open world so that you can put it anywhere you wish. You can put it in Waterdeep, right? You can put it in Sharn or somewhere from Eberron or whatever. Okay, so let's do bullet point number 1. The dwarf, this is the easy part. Grinhander is the big bad evil guy. Okay, that tells us something. He kills one or more. His skill with the blade and subtlety allowed him to assassinate a key merchant lord from the city of Velashar. Velashar. I don't know where Velashar is. You don't have to know either, okay? Now, I'm thinking of this whole blade and subtlety, and something sparked. And this is the importance of always having fuel, right? Some content that you can pull from, especially outside of the D&D space. Watch movies, read books, play video games. When I wrote Blade and Subtlety and Assassination, I immediately latched onto the video game Assassin's Creed. And what I started to think there is parkour. I want to use elements of parkour and flashy and fancy movement to navigate my way through the space, the city of Velashar. Okay? Number 4, we need a 4th bullet point. The PCs are framed for the assassination, and the dwarven bad guy is trying to claim that they are demonic agents. One of the PCs, easy if it's a warlock, is actually attached a bit to some demonic entity. It's a secret that they've kept from the world and perhaps their fellow PCs. Easy if it's a warlock or a tiefling, okay? There's some fiendish thing going on here, all right? But this dwarven bad guy is trying to claim that these guys are demonic agents. Only people like that would go forth and assassinate someone. You should blame the PCs. But the interesting thing here is there actually is some credibility to that statement because one of the PCs might be attached to something. Maybe this is something that's in the PC's background, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something that I'm now creating on my own, and I'm going to inform that PC and say, hey, by the way, you didn't put this in your background notes, but there's some tie-in that you have that you were once friends with, or your sister's brother's, uncle's, mother's, father's cousin was once attached to a devil or a demon or in some regard or whatever, okay? So, and then finally, the PCs have 2 ways to handle it. Either kill the bad dwarf or actually stand trial and clear their name from the assassination. Here's the interesting part with that. That can lead you directly into the combat pillar of gameplay because now you got to figure out how the PCs want to deal with Grinhander, this big bad enemy. Or you might go into the social exploration, maybe more political intrigue level of gameplay because now they need to find some documentation, and obviously there's no video cameras, but they might need to do some more research and investigate and use social skills to sort of come to the table, come to the courts with a tome of, a folder of information that indicates, hey, the innkeeper proves that we were in the inn and checking into the inn on the night of the assassination. And it just so happened that Grinhander registered, as at the docks, whatever. You get it, right? They need to prove their innocence and perhaps prove the guilt, that it was directly Grinhander or otherwise, okay? So that's the 5 bullet point system. Notice how we've kind of elaborated on that. Now, what you do with the 5 bullet point system, the next step, is to start answering the questions that you're asking from each of these bullet points. So, bullet point 1. The dwarf Grinhander is the big bad enemy guy. You start kind of creating mini bullet points here as well, so I'll do that. What CR is Grinhander? Is it only a fight with him? Can there be negotiations parlay? Other than killing him and clearing their name, what other items or rewards might the PCs get for dealing with Grinhander? Does Grinhander have help? Lackeys and minions. Basically, what are the other obstacles that the PCs need to go through? Or are they going to fight this big bad evil guy, Grinhander, at the same time that they're fighting 11 other dwarves, okay? I think that's enough to go on right there. Actually, no, last one. What space environment would this conflict occur in? The cool thing about that is that bullet point right there, right? That question I asked, that answer tells me, informs me behind the scenes in prep time what sort of terrain I need to acquire, what miniatures I need to gather up. And also I can start attaching that to the specific PCs. Is Grinhander going to be encountered only in some sort of a dwarven vault or a fortress? Perhaps the dwarves in the group might use their stone cutting ability to be able to discern what threats and hazards the environment might play into this encounter. Is Grinhander going to be ambushed alongside of a caravan, in which case maybe it's outdoors, maybe the druid or the ranger might be able to use survival or tracking or something like this to discern ahead of time how many people are they up against, what's Grinhander's escape route, so on and so forth. You can see how these bullet points start asking more questions, but most importantly, they start to inform you as to where to go to start creating the actual meat, the actual content that's going to get to my table, that's going to fill up 6, 8, 10 hours of gameplay, okay? I'm only going to do this exercise for the sake of, brevity and video length with bullet point number 1. But you see here, the dwarf Grinhander, he's the evil guy. You don't have to have 5 specifically here. Remember, the 5 bullet points are the 5 that came off of the story that we're latching onto, that I read out of the Abyss. That's it. That's where those specifically 5 come from. The bullet points afterwards for each of the 5 things start to give me some direction. It doesn't have to be 5. It might be 1. It might be 7. It doesn't matter, okay? But this is where I start asking questions about these things. This bullet point started asking me some questions. These are some answers that I need to find. And it's the answers that give you direction of where to go. They start to funnel your creativity into some step-by-step tangible things that you need to create, right? So what CR is Grinhander? You'll notice that we can elaborate further and start creating more bullet points. Okay, so let's put this in here. Grinhander is either using something from the Monster Manual D&D Beyond interface. Basically, I'll search by dwarf and see what level, high-level CR things there are. Grinhander, it's Grinhander, not Grindhander, will be a custom created monster using the guidelines that are in the DMG or in Xanathar's. I might give him reckless ability, and I might give him certain resistances, and I'll adjust his AC up or down. Obviously, you have to kind of gauge depending on where your PCs are, right? And figure out whether you're talking about like an easy, medium, deadly encounter. But I might create Grinhander as a custom guy. There isn't anything in the current Monster Manual or through official WotC monsters that fit the bill for Grinhander, okay? What outside sources inspire Grinhander? Maybe I want to use Warhammer Fantasy Dwarven Berserkers as the inspiration for Grinhander. This starts informing me of what sort of actions he might be able to take, and maybe his sort of little AI chart and how he functions. Maybe that he's a berserker, he does have the reckless ability, sort of like, and he's a barbarian, so he doesn't give a damn. He's going to get advantage on all his attacks, but all attacks against him have advantage. But I need to consider that, because that means that there's going to be a lot of potential damage coming in very quickly, because the PCs have a higher chance to hit if everyone's attacking with advantage. So maybe I want to have Grinhander have 410 hit points, right? Again, you have to scale that based on the level of your PCs and the overall challenge that you want to present. But using this outside influence, right? Maybe it's you just want to, I want Grinhander to be like Bruce Lee. I want Grinhander to be like Conan. Whatever it may be. Find something you can latch onto that informs the manner in which Grinhander acts. What happens when he's reduced to half his hit points? Do his actions change? Does he automatically get sort of an extra reaction every round that allows him to do something? Do his legendary actions only trigger when he's at 50% or less hit points? You see what I mean? Is you start creating this stat block, this monster. But that's giving you direction, right? I need to now lay this out in Photoshop. I need to find a cool picture for him that I can show. Here's Grinhander. Here's who you see as you walk into the Dwarven Vault, right? It tells me what miniature I want to buy from the store. What do I want to paint this weekend? You notice how it's elegant in starting to give us direction. And that's important because we're not just staying in the creative flighty mode where we know we need to come to the table with 6-7 hours of something, some meat that my players can chew on and digest, but I don't know where to begin. Now I know where to begin. I know what miniatures I want, okay? And as we look into like this bullet point, what space environment, I now know what terrain I need to either purchase or build out of foam. I know where I'm going and I start to set the stage. I can now start dealing with environmental hazards. I know where in the DMG I want to look for what's the hardness of items and structures. Maybe the environment that they're fighting in becomes destructible. Maybe they're fighting on a bridge, and what happens if in the middle of the fight the bridge starts to break and fall apart? You now start to latch onto and lean into the acrobatics ability of the rogues. You now start to change things if rocks are starting to fall from the ceiling, providing total cover. That now affects the ranger that was planning on fighting all the way in the back. And you see, you start changing the dynamics of combat by answering these bullet points. And I'm going to kind of wrap it up there, but I wanted to just simply illustrate the way my mind works, where you can take any passage, anything you read, any movie you've watched, take anything and kind of write down the bullet points, right? The core elements or the core theme of that thing you're looking at for inspiration. From that, go directly into the 5 bullet point system, which starts to ask questions. And as you start finding answers give you tangible things, tangible steps that you can chunk through as to what to create for that coming session. And if you do that, I've talked about this 500 times in various videos, you start stacking those action points, those steps, one on top of the other, and you start filling up an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, 7 hours of gameplay, which basically fills up a night of gaming. You start taking those nights of gaming and stack them one on top of one another. You start creating a story arc. You start creating an adventure. You look back at your notes and you start finding some bullet points that you can copy and paste into the next 5 bullet points for the following session. And that's how you start creating consistency and continuity. And in the end, this kind of rambly thing I just read and was inspired by from Out of the Abyss starts to give me an entire campaign. And that is how you can frame your creativity and start creating some actionable steps, some things that actually get you through hours of gameplay at your table. And hopefully those things are fun, entertaining, and worthwhile. And hopefully this video was a little bit of help along whatever journey you're on in the creative, grandiose world. That's all I've got. Thanks, everyone. Take care.